we'll start in just a minute or two, everyone. I just wanted to give you the heads up. Thanks for waiting. Hey, good evening, everyone. I think we are truly ready to start. My name is Adam Feldman. I'm a librarian here at the library, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all. I'm glad that you came. And because I am a librarian, I wonder if you would participate in a little action research with me for a second. So the action I'd like you to do is, would everyone please stand up? Don't worry, I'm not going to make you do too much. And if standing up isn't comfortable, you can put your hand up. So please sit down if you were born outside of Philadelphia. If you were not born in Philadelphia, you can sit down. If one of your parents was not born in Philadelphia, sit down. If one of your grandparents was not born in Philadelphia, sit down. To me, that's a really beautiful thing we just discovered about this room. Like, it only took us to get back to our grandparents before we have a community of migration, a community of immigration. And that's very much what tonight is about. Now, the stories about our families are completely different. I don't mean to equate them. I just want to show that we are constantly remaking Philadelphia. And that's a really, really beautiful thing about this community that we own. The Free Library of Philadelphia very much means to serve and grow and develop that continually new community. And to do things like that, we work with partners in government, in nonprofits, among citizens. And I would like to invite to the stage next Symbol from the Office of Immigrant Affairs to tell us a little bit more about the context of tonight. Yeah,
I'm a little bit short, guys, so hopefully this is okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Symbol. I'm the Deputy Director for the Office of Immigrant Affairs. I'd like to give you a very special welcome for making it out tonight. The official title of the event is called Making Philadelphia Home, and this is one of our featured events for Immigrant Heritage Month. So who knows what Immigrant Heritage Month is? Show of hands. Yes? No? Okay, so Immigrant Heritage Month comes every year at June, and this is a national month that uses storytelling to feature immigrants and our diverse experiences. So normally when we think of immigrants, we think of one set of experiences, and the way that storytelling works is that it allows us to see immigrants and immigrant communities as three-dimensional and very, very diverse. So that is one way that storytelling can be very powerful. Tonight we're going to use storytelling. In addition to that, we're going to try playing around with storytelling, and we're going to try to make it do different things and do different types of work. So again, show of hands. This is me nerding out, so bear with me a little bit. Who's familiar with the German philosopher Walter Benjamin? Raise your hands. Who loves Benjamin? Yeah, yes. So Benjamin is a German philosopher. He wrote between World War I and World War II. And he wrote this wonderful essay called The Storyteller, he did a lot of work thinking about the relationship between arts and politics in the midst of the rise of Nazi Germany. And so when he talks about the storyteller, he's thinking about storytelling as an oral medium that builds community, right? So this is, in addition, regardless of how you identify, you don't even have to identify as immigrants, right? When we're telling stories to each other in an oral community, we're doing work that allows us to talk about our differences and then find out the ways that we can interact despite these differences, right? And this might be finding commonalities, right? So understanding that we want the same things, we want to feel safe, we want to feel secure, and it could also be, just understanding that we are different, and maybe there are other ways that we can support each other, interact, right? So this is Benjamin. Please read his stuff. He's great. He's one of our favorites. And going off of that, this is kind of what the core of tonight is about. So we want to talk about, we worked very hard to think about how we wanted to play with storytelling, what's the power of storytelling, and we brought together a very diverse set of people who want to speak about their experiences, and some of them don't necessarily even identify as immigrants. And the point of tonight is we want you guys to start thinking about the ways that, especially now when anti-immigrant sentiment is high, how we can, build community, how we can how we can stand up for each other, and how we can develop a new language in which we can create a better community where everyone feels welcome and everyone feels safe. So, finally, I just wanted to thank our partners who helped make this happen. I'm going to embarrass you guys a little bit. Is that okay? Okay, so I wanted to thank Melissa from Mural Arts. She's been great. All the beautiful art stations up there has been her doing. She's brought so many of you, she's worked with so many of performers today individually, and I hope she's very proud when they read their stories. Adam is my buddy at the Free Library. Thank you for working with us to help make this happen. Special shout out goes to Nate Eddy. Can you wave for everyone? And Andrew Nurkin. Can you wave for everyone? They are my buddies at the Free Library as well. We talked about this starting last year in December, and they were crazy enough to come along for the ride. So thank you so much for being there in these meetings and helping us make this possible. I also wanted to give a shout out to the people who are performing, and they include Al-Bustan Seeds of Culture, Nationality Services Center, Scribe Video, and the students of the Porchlight program. And without further ado, I want to pass this along to Melissa, my friend from Mural Arts, who's going to say a few words about Mural Arts and their mission.
I just want to, sorry, I'm losing my voice, very briefly say thank you to everyone who's coming. Mural Arts has been working with immigrants and refugees in Philly for quite a few years now. We started with Southeast by Southeast, which is a wellness-based project sponsored with Mural Arts and the Department of Behavioral Health under our Porchlight program about 7 or 8 years ago. And it was really with that dream with Shira Walensky, who is really the person behind all of the art and the screen printing and the photography that you see out front today, that we kind of stumbled on the idea of storytelling and really how important it was and how therapeutic it was and how empowering and normalizing it is for people to tell their stories and to share what they've been through, what their hopes are, what their aspirations are, what the challenges that they're going through are. A lot of the themes that I'm sure you'll hear today. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming. We really hope to continue to work with all of you and all the people involved in these wonderful programs and all of the really brave and inspirational people who will be telling their story today. And I for one can't wait to hear them. So thank you so much for coming, and be sure to check out Southeast by Southeast and all of the other work that Mural Arts is doing with immigrants and refugees in South Philly and in Northeast Philly with Fells Foundation. Thank you very much.
It's me again. So I'm going to pass this off. I'm going to introduce you. I forgot to give a special shout out. Our very own Philadelphia Poet Laureate is here, and they will be reading poems and everything. And I wanted to shout out to our MC, Jo Lynn, who is my colleague in the city. But in the meantime, she also moonlights as an MC and improv actor. She's great. So please come onto the stage and take it away, Jo.
Hi everyone, my name is Jo and I'm the MC for the evening. I felt very honored to be asked to be emceeing this event. In terms of making Philadelphia home, that is a theme that really resounds with me because I came to Philadelphia 2.5 years ago and was able to make Philadelphia home. But in terms of the greater immigrant experience, I came from a family where my dad was a white-collar immigrant. He came here to pursue higher education, his master's degree, and eventually work for Silicon Valley. And my mom was a war refugee from Vietnam, where she escaped Vietnam on a boat. They were shipwrecked in Indonesia and was sponsored to come over through a Mennonite church in small-town Virginia. So having had two parents that really spanned the spectrum of immigrant experience, one from a white-collar background and one from a refugee background, I understand that there's a whole spectrum of stories in between, and I, for one, can't wait to hear tonight's stories. So at this point, I would like to bring up the Poet Laureate of Philadelphia, and I'm just going to retreat to the podium where I can read her bio in more detail. Is this on? Okay, great. So Raquel Sales Rivera is the 2018 to 2019 Poet Laureate of Philadelphia and a Canto Mundo Fellow. Their work has appeared in journals such as the Revista del Instituto de Cultura Puertorriqueña, the Apogee, McSweeney's, and the Boston Review. They are the author of Caneca de Anhelos Turbios, Oropel Tinsel, Tierra Intermitente, and Lo Terciario, the Tertiary. Currently, they are the co-editor of The Wanderer and Puerto Rico en mi corazón, a collection of bilingual broadsides of contemporary Puerto Rican poets. So, without further ado, let's welcome Raquel.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is amazing. I hope I can do justice to this event and to all of the readers, and thank you so much for inviting me. As usual, I read in Spanish first, and then I read the translation in English. El animal celeste imaginario. Un animal en zancos llega hasta las lágrimas de la Virgen y las limpia con ternura. La Virgen llora leche, 3 monjitas, leche sin café. Esperan en la sala mientras las matas nos hablan y discuten la muerte. Es muerte si es árbol, si es árbol, si es árbol. No se dice árbol, se dice recógelo de la escuela porque no crece. Su hijo no habla cuando le enseñamos una lista de jirafas, no sabe identificar nuestros ancestros. Por alguna razón le cuesta organizar las letras alfabéticamente. En la cafetería se sienta aparte y repite la misma oración. Si es árbol, puede ser mi hermano. Si es árbol, puede ser mi hermano. Si es árbol. Es posible que tu hijo sea un ángel, que tengamos que llevarlo al albergue de ángeles. Entiendo que crees que los ángeles no existen, porque lo que llaman ángeles son animales y que crees en la reverencia animal, la broma sobre cómo somos divinamente adoloridos, pero tu hijo es ángel y será exterminado. Tiene nostalgia, magia de ángel, alga de más. Duele desde la cima hasta la condición centralizada de la carne. Tu hijo no existe, es un hijo imaginario. No estudiará sin dinero, no entrará al amor, ni sumirá las divisas. No comerá mangú, tu hijo de todas las cosas, tu padre de ninguna, tu mangú de las orquídeas y la vejez. Tu hijo es un espíritu maligno. Se sienta solo en las escaleras con un libro, su ropa no es nueva, con razón toca piano, pero no sabe deletrear Mississippi, ni entiende el sufrimiento necesario de todas las cosas que no son blancas ni reales. Nos da un nombre, pero no lo tenemos en la lista. La Virgen llora por ti, mi hija. La Virgen llora por tu hijo como lloramos por aquellos, los pecadores, los cuerpos que salen de cuerpos que no saben describir las llanuras de ciertos estados e industrias. Trabaja hasta las 8 limpiando los pasillos, pero no los recoges. Por la madrugada limpia a los santos y de noche reza en lenguas imposibles. The celestial and imaginary animal. An animal on stilts reaches the Virgin's tears and tenderly wipes them. The Virgin cries 3 monjitas milk without coffee. While the plants don't speak, they wait in the living room and discuss death. Is it death if it is tree? If it is tree? If it is tree? You don't say tree, you say pick him up from school because he doesn't grow. Your son doesn't talk when we show him a list of giraffes. He can't identify our ancestors. For some reason, he has trouble organizing letters alphabetically. In the cafeteria, he sits alone and repeats the same sentence. If it is tree, it can be my brother. If it is tree, it can be my brother. If it is tree. It's possible your son is an angel, that we'll have to take him to the angel shelter. I understand you believe angels don't exist because what they call angels are animals, and you believe in animal reverence, the joke about how we are divinely soar. But your son is an angel we will exterminate. He has nostalgia, angel magic, algae of more. He hurts from the mountaintop down to the centralized condition of the flesh. Your son doesn't exist. He is an imaginary son. He won't study without money or enter love or add up currencies. He won't eat mango. Your son of all things, your father of none. Your mango of orchids and old age. Your son is a malignant spirit. He sits alone on the stairs with a book. His clothes aren't new. Of course he plays the piano, but doesn't know how to spell Mississippi or understand the necessary suffering of all things that aren't white or real. You give us a name, but we don't have him on the list. The Virgin cries for you, my daughter. The Virgin cries for your son like we cry for sinners. Bodies that come out of bodies that don't know how to describe planes from certain states and industries. He works until 8 cleaning hallways, but you don't pick him up. In the morning, he wipes down the saints, and at night, prays in impossible tongues. So I came here from Puerto Rico 6 years ago. All my family is there. To live in Philadelphia as a Boricua who came 6 years ago means to be in mourning very often and constantly, and to love the city very much as well, even in that mourning. And so I try to hold space for that here, as I do everywhere I go. In some ways voluntarily and in others involuntarily, I found myself in the position where I come back over and over again to the fact that we are being killed. And so today I hold space for that, and I hold space for the numbers that range from 1,000 to 8,000, we don't know, of Puerto Ricans who died as a result of economic injustice after the hurricane. No se cambia una chaqueta por una chaqueta. Tomemos dos mercancías. Por ejemplo, 50 años de trabajo y una deuda acumulada por 50 años. Como propietaria de la primera, decides llevarla al Caribe Hilton bancario, donde daría mi vida por pagar esta deuda. Pero te explican que no da. Así como la deuda y los 50 años de trabajo son valores de uso cualitativamente diferentes, los trabajos por medio de los cuales llegan a existir, el del inversionista y el del colonizado. Tu vida no es suficiente. Tendrás que pagarla con el trabajo de tus hijos y los hijos de tus hijos. Digamos que les dices, nunca tuve porque nunca quise que heredaran mi deuda, aquellos que apenas saben distinguir entre coquito y leche. Pero te explican que aunque no tengas linaje, la heredarán tus vecinas, el perro que saquea tu basura, doña Sofía con su rosario luminoso, tu abuela que apenas sale a la farmacia, Angelía que aún espera tu libro, Luis que finalmente tiene empleo pero con deuda todavía, el tipo que te asaltó por 10 pesos. Imagínate que vuelves con tus vecinos, con tu abuela, con el perro que a veces rebusca la basura, con Angelía, con Luis y dices, he aquí mis herederos. ¿Aceptarás nuestro pago? ¿Darás por finalizada nuestra deuda? ¿Borrarás nuestros nombres del sistema? Pero te dicen, te faltan los ríos, el río Oaxaca, el río Camuy, el río Cibusco, el río de Bayamón, el río Puerto Nuevo, el río Grande de Loíza, el río Herrera, el río Mamey, el río Sabana, el río Fajardo, el río de Aguao, el río Santiago, el río Blanco, el río Macao, el río Seco, el río Maunabo, etcétera, etcétera, etcétera. Ellos serán tus herederos. Esta vez decides adelantarte. Recorres todo Puerto Rico como un espectro. Agarras puñales de lo que sea. Sombrías de gasolinera, piedra caliza, actas de nacimiento, tiendas quebradas, etcétera, etcétera, etcétera. Vuelves al banco con tu isla tan densamente ingerida que toses semáforos y entierros y dices, he aquí todo lo que cabe, entre el mar Caribe y el Atlántico Norte, he aquí mi imaginario. Pero te dicen, debes la nada. Tu cuenta tiene un balance negativo. A cambio de esta deuda solo aceptamos chaquetas. Pero esto sí que no lo tiene, porque casi nunca hace frío en Puerto Rico. Digamos que vas hasta Filadelfia a buscar las chaquetas que necesitan las abuelas, las Angelías, el río Maunabo, etc. Trabajas duro, buscas una licencia con dirección renovada, compras 3, 4, 500 chaquetas. Vas a la sucursal local y dices, aquí las tengo, quisiera pagar aquella deuda. Pero sin mirar te contestan, aquí en Philly no aceptamos chaquetas. Supongamos que en la caja de pasteles le envías las chaquetas a tu madre con una notita que lee pago, deuda de Puerto Rico. Y mami, tras decodificar tu letra, carga la caja hasta la sucursal del Banco Popular, el Caribe Hilton Bancario o lo que sea Bank, donde la miran mal y le indican, antes de que pueda decir palabra alguna, para entregar chaquetas utilice la fila número 3. Imagínate que es una fila larga, larguísima, casi interminable. Una fila de 50 años. Coats are not exchanged for coats. Let us take two commodities, such as 50 years of work and one debt accumulated over 50 years. As proprietor of the first, you decide to take it to Caribe Hilton Banking, where I offer my life to pay this debt. But they explain that it's not enough. Just as the debt and the 50 years of work have use values that are qualitatively different, so are the two forms of labor that produce them, that of the investor and that of the colonized. Your life is not enough. You will have to pay with the labor of your children and your children's children. Let's say you tell them, I never had any, because I never wanted to make heirs of those who barely know the difference between milk and coquito. But they explain that even if you don't have a lineage, your neighbors, the dog that plunders your trash, Doña Sofia with her luminous rosary, your abuela that barely leaves the house to go to the pharmacy, Angelia that still awaits your book, Luis that finally has a job but still has debts to pay, that guy who mugged you for $10 will inherit. Imagine that you come back with your neighbors, with your abuela, with the dog that sometimes searches your trash, with Angelia, with Luis, and say, here are my heirs. Do you accept our payment? Will you erase our names from the system? Will you terminate our debt? But they say, where are the rivers? El río Oaxaca, el río Camuy, el río Cibuco, el río de Bayamón, el río Puerto Nuevo, el río Grande de Loíza, el río Herrera, el río Mamey, el río Sabana, el río Fajardo, el río Daguao, el río Santiago, el río Blanco, el río Macao, el río Seco, el río Maunabo, etc., etc., etc. They will be your heirs. This time you decide to get ahead. Like a specter, you haunt all of Puerto Rico. You grab handfuls of whatever, gasoline station umbrellas, limestone, birth certificates, shut down shops, etc., etc., etc. You go back to the bank with your island so densely ingested that you cough up burials and streetlights and say, here I have all that fits between the Caribbean Sea and the North Atlantic. Here I have my imaginary. But they say, you owe nothingness. Your account has a negative balance. In exchange for this debt, we only accept coats. But this you definitely don't have, because it's almost never cold in Puerto Rico. Let's say you go to Philadelphia to look for the coats much needed by the abuelas, the angelias, the Rio Maunabo, etc. You work hard, look for a license with a renewed address, buy 3, 4, 500 coats, go to the local branch and say, here they are, I would like to pay that debt. But without looking up, they answer, here in Philly, we don't accept coats. Let's suppose that in the pasteles box, you send the coats to your mother with a note that reads, payment, Puerto Rican debt. And Mami, after decoding your handwriting, carries the box to the local branch of the Banco Popular, Caribe Hilton Banking, or lo que sea bank, where they give her a look, and before she can say a word, indicate, to turn in coats, use line number 3. Imagine that it is a long, longer, almost interminable line, a line that spans 50 years. Thank you.
Gracias, Raquel. Next, I would like to introduce two performers from Al Bustan Seeds of Culture. For those who are not familiar, Al Bustan is a nonprofit, and they seek to promote Arab culture, not only through arts programming and language programming, but also through cross-cultural understanding. The first of Al Bustan's performers is Hajar Al-Faham. She was born in Iraq and came to the United States as a refugee. She is currently completing her PhD at the University of Pennsylvania, where she studies the politics of immigration, race, and religion. So join me in welcoming Hajar.
little too short for this. Oh, you can move it. Oh, nice. Good afternoon, everyone, and Ramadan Mubarak to everyone who is fasting or is trying. I'm thrilled to join you today. A couple of months ago, I had the great opportunity to connect with El Bustan Seeds of Culture, a fantastic local organization which I highly recommend. And I participated in a workshop series on displacement and migration. The workshop encouraged all of us to explore themes of displacement and movement through different art mediums like poetry, like painting, like crafts. And in the process, we were all able to parse out and think through our different journeys to this point. And while I consider Philadelphia my home now, that wasn't always the case. My family and I came to the United States as refugees in the early 1990s. My parents were revolutionaries against Saddam Hussein's regime. And we were among the extremely fortunate who were able to escape the war and the civil conflict and start a new life here in the United States. And I grew up on the West Coast and in the Seattle area, and these early experiences I had with assimilation, with the challenges of being Arab and Muslim in a country that didn't know what to do with Arabs and Muslims. There isn't even a category that acknowledges Arabs in the United States. These early experiences were what led me to study politics, to want to understand power, to want to understand why all of us are where we are today. And so I'm pursuing this career as a scholar and as a researcher of politics. And it was very hard for me to leave my family behind. I think when I think through displacement and migration, it seems to me that we go through multiple migrations throughout our lives. It's not just once as a refugee or once as your family's getting relocated. It seems to be a constant pattern in my life, at least. And the city is remarkable. Philadelphia is a fabulous place to live. It's a mix of old and new. It has people from every community possible. And it's this diversity that makes it feel like home to me. In fact, the very first time I realized Philadelphia was home and Seattle was no longer my home was when I was walking to school and I noticed a line of 5 different halal food carts. And there were customers clustered around each of them. So here I was on the East Coast in this all-American city, and the food that I associate with my Arab background, that hummus, that falafel, all these foods that have been so popular in Philadelphia that represent home to me, were right here. And in my time so far, I haven't met a single person from Philadelphia who has eaten halal, as you guys like to call it, and it's pretty heartwarming. So as I close this narrative with you guys, and as I think through the fear and distrust of immigrants and refugees in our current local and political environment, I'm more convinced than ever that it's crucial that we come together, share our stories, and do all we can to ensure that Philadelphia is a warm and welcoming place for everyone. Thank you all, and happy Immigrant Heritage Month.
Our second performer from Al Bustan is Afaq. Afaq is a Philly-based daughter with grandmother tendencies. Assembled in Yemen from Sudanese parts, Afaq considers herself a global citizen of her own country. She is an artist, an activist, and an educator who seeks to love the world until it loves her back. And here she is to share with us her poem on stargazing from rock bottom.
Can you hear me? All right, awesome. I'm actually going to use the mic because podiums make me nervous. Can everyone hear me? That's a first. All right. Before I share my poem, I was jotting down a few things on the concept of home because that seems to be the question when we talk about immigration, displacement, migration. We're asking what home is. So this is not a poem, but home is when you know where the light switches are. Home is where you see yourself dreaming from. Home is where everyone feels your name. Home is where you toss the mango seeds. Home is where you know who's passing by the sound of their footstep. Home is where they know how to hold you, or it's how they hold you. Home is where the hummus is. So. Now for the actual poem. My family is a weeping willow that has forgotten how to cry. Some people are dealt the short end of the stick. We were dealt a gun that would not stop firing. My family is a burning bush. War taught us to have faith in each other, in the river, in God, who, like the violence, was always there, even on days we tried to convince ourselves otherwise, even when we resented the fact. My family is an olive branch that has never known peace. We know how to rebuild houses, if not each other. We know when you mix water with sand, you make cake, and a good rock, and a good wrist is all it takes to make the Nile dance, or to wash out the blood. And sometimes, and if you skip stones with your cousin on a Saturday, he'll live long after the Sunday that kills him. And sometimes, when you're 4 years old and the war comes, bullets sound like God clapping. And sometimes, when you're 22 years old and the rains fall, thunder sounds like war brewing. And when the drought comes, it will stay. And when the famine comes, it will stay. Of all those who've loved and held and hurt you, war is the only one who stays. From rock's bottom, we can still see stars. So if your uncle's lungs stop expanding, Jawaffa will taste just as sweet. And if you laugh until it echoes, you are not forgetting the war. It is okay to forget the war. If you cry until it echoes, you will not drown. And if you start to feel at home in another country, you are not forgetting where the bones are buried. And soon you'll learn that every country is a graveyard. And soon you'll learn that you don't have to be. You will learn to live outside of the war zone. And you will find love there. You will never live outside of a war zone. But you will live. The corpses will always outnumber the funerals. But you will not be one of them. You'll always be running, but not always away. You'll meet people who only know war in terms of metaphor, resent the war and not them. Hurt will find you in other lands. Not all the monsters will look like you. When you can't make peace, make dua, and never forget how to fight for your life. And never forget all the lives worth fighting for. Know that the pain that won't kill you is still valid. The rights that won't save you are still worth fighting for. And injustice without the bullet still needs addressing. Thank you.
Thank you, Afaq, and thank you, Hadra. The next part of our program has to do with the Mural Arts' Porch Light program. And as you'll notice in your program that there's actually two pieces that are presented by Porch Light, but the first piece is from 5 students from Northeast High School. I would like to invite all of them up as a group, and they will each share with us a poem they have written. The students' names are Viktor Sajkovsky, Neira Sabic, Nicolette Sanders Thomas, Malika Giursava, and Serhii Vartsava.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Victor. I am from Belarus. I came here 1 year ago. So here's my poem. I am a spark. My name, Victor, means evidently victory. I am from a place where people wear vyshivanka. I am from a place where I heard people say, Живе Belarus, Belarus forever. I am from traditions like jumping over the fire at night. I am from music like a guitar next to the flames. I am from work like a commander of an infantry squad. I am from community like walking at late nights, staring at the stars. I am from a family like a flock of birds flying south. Walking in Philadelphia, I feel like I'm walking through a cultural gallery. Being in my school, I hear dozens of languages flying around my ears. I wonder how deep this world can breathe, and tomorrow I will expect the unexpected. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nicolai Sanders Thomas, and here's my poem. My first day of school felt like I was in the death penalty, and everyone was staring at me. I was so uncomfortable. I wanted to leave school right away. The students were so arrogant towards me. In my class, I felt dehumanized, at the same time inferior. The school was so big that I needed GPS to take me from class to class. I was yearning for a good friend to guide me to the right direction. I had lost all my 5 senses. I was mute and deaf at the same time. I was waiting for school to be over. Time was taking forever for school to be over. And my body, I wasn't used to the uniform. My body felt weird. My mind was in Haiti. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Sergio Barsaba. I am a puzzle. I am from a dent of a piece of metal. My name means dear, strong-tempered, Sergius. I am from a place where I heard people say, Slava Ukraini, Heroyam Slava, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. I am from traditions like bread and wine every Sunday morning. I am from music like blood in human's body. I am from work like rocks under my feet. I am from community like pages in a book. I am from family like clouds in the sky. Walking in Philadelphia, I feel like a butterfly between different kinds of life. Being in my school, I know who I am and what I need. I wonder, why is life complicated? Like puzzles where there are many wrong pieces. Tomorrow, I will continue where I will solve my finished puzzle of life. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Neira. So this is my poem. I am the seed of love, the love of someone special. I am from a divided society where faith has nothing to do with God. I am from a place where I heard people say, don't go there, that is not our side. I am from traditions that matter, like baklava on Eid and meza on New Year's Eve. I am from music that makes my toes dance, my heart beat, and the line on my face turn into a curve. I am from work I have done on myself. Some say change is easy, but I'm here to say it was not at all. I am from a community of hope and failure that everyone reminds you of. I am from a family with different but connected poems about everything we couldn't, but now can. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Malika Giyasova. I am a white flower, splashed with blood all over. My name means queen with broken wings. I am from a single rose trying to blossom again. I am from a place where I heard you are not good enough for the life you have. I am from traditions like a newborn dove, wearing a white dress, crying inside like cold snow showers. I am from emptiness of desolation music. I am from she works when the sun is up and comes home at moonrise just to give a good life for her kids. I am from a community like hate, jealousy, and dole. I am from a family like salt in the sea, cannot be separated. Walking in Philadelphia, I fear love promises to last, but beautiful lies. Being in my school, I feel hate and judgment. I wonder a lot about the mysterious future and close my eyes slowly to realize it will be fine. Thank you.
So for those who are not familiar with the Porchlight program, it's actually a collaboration between Mural Arts and the City of Philadelphia's Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services. They have programming in Southeast and Northeast Philadelphia, and I just wanted to give these students another round of applause, being that they're the future of poetry. Next up, we have a video performance from Scribe Video. Scribe Video seeks to explore, develop, and advance the use of electronic media, including video and audio, as artistic media and tools for progressive social change. At this point, I would like to bring up Tina Morton. She will be showing two excerpts from her video When We Came Up Here. But before we show it, Tina will explain a little bit about her process. Welcome, Tina.
Hello, and welcome everybody, and I loved everyone's poems. I'm sorry, I'm not a poet, but well, what we did, Scribe Video is a community arts center at 3908 Lancaster Avenue. They just moved, where they teach people how to make films. They don't make films about people, they tell people how to make films so they can make films about themselves. But this project was a part of the Great Migration Project, which documented, my part of it was I documented how the Tribune helped people during the migration process and how the Philadelphia Tribune was such a great asset because it gave people information who came from down south up to the north, who migrated to the north. So the two people that we will see from the excerpt of my piece is Adeline Balin and Mr. Robert Bogle, who is the CEO of the Philadelphia Tribune. Thank you.
When my family arrived in Philadelphia in 1944, I had never witnessed or had a newspaper. I didn't know what it was. I could see it was paper, I could read the words, but I didn't quite understand that it was African American newspaper. And when they explained it to my mother and father, that they wanted to interview them, all of us were really, really just beyond excited, not only excited, but a little frightened because we did not want to tell our story because we still had family in that town. So we were very cautious of what we would say to the reporter that came out to 23rd Street to interview my grandfather and my family. It's not a good story. I don't like to. I had nightmares about it for years. I was 9 years old at the time. I remember that night, it was a Saturday night, and my grandfather always came home and brought fruit for us to enjoy around the table or around the fireplace. As a family, we did this every Saturday night. And this night, some Caucasian gentleman came early and knocked on our door and asked for my grandfather. And naturally, he wasn't home yet. So that made my grandmother think things weren't quite right. But anyway, all night we waited for my grandfather. And at a certain time, some of the neighbors started out to look for my grandfather because they knew something wasn't quite right. But like 1 o'clock in the morning, they came with they found my grandfather on the railroad tracks. He had been severely beaten with a sack over his head, but by him working on the railroad, the tracks, when the train was coming, awakened him. And that made him get off the tracks. But they found him and brought him home, but he was severely beaten. When we decided, and it was decided by the neighborhood that we had to leave, my grandmother sent a telegram to my Uncle Ben at 1544 North 23rd Street and told him exactly what had happened. And he wired the money back to us to buy tickets to get on the train. Oh, the big city. Oh, 30th Street Station. Oh, I was looking around because, think about it, I had never seen a skyscraper. And you know, at 1944 there was that many, but what was here was really exciting to me. And when we arrived in the basement, like of 30th Street Station, there was an elevator there, and there was an escalator there. We didn't know how. We were frightened. We didn't know how. But one of the porters came and rode with me. And he said, now, when you get to the top, walk off real fast. Well, I jumped off. I was glad to get off that thing. But it was exciting to arrive in the big city. I had never been in a big city. I had never been on the train. I was a little country girl. I didn't know anything. When my family arrived at 30th Street Station, the porter that waited on us and helped us, he could see that we were just beyond any view of anything that he had ever seen, because we had left with what we had on, our clothes, and we had been riding over a day and a night to get here. So he could see, the porter could see that we had a problem. So I think that's why he came over and helped us. But anyway, that porter, and I don't remember his name, but the porter at the 30th Street Station, a black porter, African-American porter, reported to someone. We don't know who, but he told someone. And that reporter came out and knocked on the door and talked with my Uncle Benjamin, and he knew exactly who he was, because he knew about the Tribune, and naturally he let him interview. He trusted him and let him interview, that he would not tell too much of the story.
My mother was born in Lynchburg, Virginia. She was raised there. Her father was the president of a school called Virginia Seminary and College. My father went to school there. Apparently my father met my mother there. And after school, they moved to Norfolk, I believe in Baltimore, where my father worked for a newspaper. They transferred him to their Philadelphia office, and he left the Afro American newspaper and came to work for the Philadelphia Tribune. I only knew him as having worked for a black newspaper. It's the only thing I ever remember. I served every president with the exception of the founder, Christopher James Perry. The man who brought me here was a man I knew as Uncle Gene, E. Washington Rhodes. Mr. Rhodes married one of Mr. Perry's, our founder's daughters. He came here in 1919. He he was matriculated at Lincoln University and wanted to be a lawyer. He got sick, transferred from Lincoln to Temple, geography, the distance, came and met Bertha Rhodes, that they became a couple. And so I knew him as Uncle Gene, because when I would come down here, I'd be in and out of his office also. Eustace Gay became our president after Mr. Rhodes. From 1970 until 1972. Then our editor, John Saunders, became our president from 72 to 76. In 1976, Alfred L. Morris became our president until 1980. And from 1980 until 1989, Waverly L. Easley was our president. And I became the president in 1989. The real difference between the South as we know it and the notion of segregation and discrimination existed here in Philadelphia, and we called it de facto segregation and discrimination here because there were places you couldn't go in Philadelphia if you were an African American. But that was an accepted fact. It wasn't the law. In what we call the South, it was the law. At one time, there were more freed blacks in Philadelphia than any other geographic area in America, or what was then America. So the very fact that Philadelphia symbolized freedom institutionally was an attraction to African Americans, particularly Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, the Carolinas. It was a very attractive site to come to because there was a greater amount of movement between those geographic areas in Philadelphia. So Philadelphia became a place where they wanted to come for this thing called freedom, only to find out that the freedom was not as free. The Tribune became a vehicle, a catalyst, an information source that provided information to go back and forth between the reader and, of course, the Tribune. And so it became an asset to those who wanted not only to migrate, but who were actually here. Because at that time, this was the only vehicle they had of getting information. There were what we would call white newspapers at that time who had a black section or black pages. Most of that was consumed with what was wrong in African Americans or with African Americans, as opposed to the Tribune giving a more comprehensive look that reflected the African American experience for men and women who lived here in Philadelphia. We're the only resource that tells the story of African Americans from the time you're born to the time you die. I mean, there isn't anything within reason that embraces the African American experience that we don't talk about or articulate.
So our next storyteller comes to us from Nationalities Service Center. And for those who are not familiar, Nationalities Service Center is a nonprofit that prepares and empowers immigrants and refugees in the Philadelphia region to transcend challenging circumstances by providing comprehensive client-centered services and to build a solid foundation for a self-sustaining and dignified future. At this time, I would like to welcome Alec, who hails from Pakistan and will be sharing with us his immigrant story.
Good evening to everyone. Basically, I came here to attend this event, but unfortunately, our NSC person, he is not here who have to represent this, and just now I remember I have to be present. My name is Alec, and I am from Pakistan. Sorry for that. It's okay. I came in Philadelphia since last 4 months, and I feel it. This community is give us the respect, encouragement, and hope for our children. And I am the part of NSC since last 3 months. The NSC is the place who was giving us the encouragement to build up as a American culture, to build up how we will be in America, to give us the strength how we can grow up in American culture. And as refugees, we are facing too many problems when we are arriving here. But the NSC is the place who was giving us the encouragement to grow up ourselves. They are guiding us. They are treating us as a human. And what I am in front of you in this 3 months, how they grow up me, and I'm in front of you. And I'm thankful to NSC for this giving great things to the newcomers. And I'm thankful for Philadelphia community to give us the part as a Philadelphia community. Thank you very much so much.
Thank you, Alec. So for our next piece is another video piece, and this one is entitled Charles Albert Tindley, Here Am I, Send Me. But before we show that video, I would like to bring up the 3 videographers, if you will, Dr. Brenda Tucker Patterson, Reverend Frank Tyson, and Joan Merritt. They are working on preserving the archives of the Tindley Temple at United Methodist Church. So join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Charles Albert Tindley migrated to Philadelphia in 1870 with his bride. And they migrated from the Berlin, Maryland section of the country. As an aside, Philadelphia was considered by many of the African American Methodists as heaven. So when you moved to Philadelphia, if you were a minister in the Delaware Annual Conference and the bishop assigned you to Philadelphia, you thought that you had finally made it to heaven. Okay? When Dr. Tindley returned to pastor at a church where he had been a member in 1902, he began a great work which led to the building of the edifice at Broad and Fitzwater, which at the time was the largest church edifice in the city. It set 3,200 people, and it was filled morning and evening. And the way he did this great work was he was involved with those who were migrating to Philadelphia, to heaven. He fed them, he clothed them, he opened up the church at night. So for those who did not have a home, they would have a place to stay. You're going to now see the film, Here Am I, Send Me. And these are just two of the hard-working people who put this work together. Okay.
I live up there. I live up there. I live up the street. I live right there. I live up there.
And he got time here stolen. My father and dad were born in slavery. And my father didn't stay on that farm. We moved to Philadelphia. That's when we got in touch with the Temple Church for East Calvin.
My parents and their families came up. You're going to the big city. Well, you know, I didn't realize that the prejudice and the segregation was so strong there. And as Brother Farrar said, he was right from down the road from my grandfather. And he was talking about how they lynched people right there in Princess Anne. So they were getting away from the segregation.
My grandmother migrated here from Augusta, Georgia.
I never think of it as South, but they are from Berlin, Maryland. And I guess the Berlin, Marylanders here, they might call it the South, but I've always just thought of it as being, you know, out of town, but not that far.
My family came here in 1922. My grandfather used to work on the railroad, and his brother was a minister in Port Norris, and he used to come with the Delaware Conference. His name was Reverend John E. Bishop, and he used to come to Tenley.
My father was from Louisa, Virginia. He came by train. They got off at the Broad Street station, and at that station, there were people of color who directed them to South Street, and South Street was the place where you could find your relatives. And he inquired about his aunt, Mary Murray, and they said, oh, she's a local preacher at Tenley Temple.
The first church was around 8th and Bainbridge, and it was a little church. And that's where Dr. Tinley had his membership. And then they moved up to 11th and Bainbridge.
I think about Dr. Tinley and how he would come into the church and he would clean the church, being the janitor.
He entered the ministry as a member of that church in 1885, and then in 1902, he was assigned to be the pastor at that church. But in 3 years' time, the church was enlarged twice. And so he was quietly maneuvering to buy the Presbyterian church at Broad and Fitzwater. The unwritten rule was that no black could own anything on a major thoroughfare in the city, and Broad Street was a major thoroughfare. There was opposition. The church that was purchased in 1906, the name was changed from Old Bainbridge Street to Calvary Methodist Episcopal Church. Now, it was at this point that he introduced several programs that this church would be known far and wide for.
As soon as the man gets married, what's the first thing when we start doing? Cook them for him. Okay.
I got stuffing, turkey, gravy, yams, string beans, rolls.
Let us pray. Father God, we thank you so much for this day. We ask you to bless the food and those who have prepared it. Be with us, guide us, lead us, and direct us, and that we could be a help. Amen.
And I hear a lot of people say, you know, if it was for the soup kitchen, I don't know what I would do.
And there was the clothing drive.
From what I was told by my grandmother, she said that it was hundreds and hundreds he housed in the basement of Tinley Temple.
He didn't drive, but he didn't have no car. I remember him walking down Broad Street, coming to church 5 times now.
Finally, Dr. Tinley said that he had prayed about it and he felt that the Lord wanted him to build a cathedral. And they worked on the plans, and they were ready to enter for their first service the first Sunday in December 1924.
He was very tall, and he would walk the pulpit, and he would from one end to the other, and he had I guess it's called a morning coat, that he always wore, and he would also leave the pulpit and come down and preach. And it was always packed, and sometimes it was so packed that he couldn't walk because they had people that were right there and that was blocking him from walking.
I remember him catching my jaws when I was little.
I remember looking up at Dr. Tinley, Reverend Tinley as we call him. And I was thinking he was such a huge man. And he had such a resounding voice. I said, whoa. And then one Sunday, I just decided I would get up and go up there and sit on the floor.
A lot of families mortgaged their homes to build the church that's standing now.
They gave what they could.
The trustees said to Dr. Tinley, even though you've had members who are willing to mortgage their homes, we're still having problems. But we hear there's an evangelist, and he's running a revival, and he's gotten them out of debt. And we would like to bring him here.
I remember him being there for a revival. He didn't say much. He did more pose and be made fine clothes, you know. He said, say one word, and the people say, hey, man.
He was a showman. No, he wasn't known as a biblical preacher.
My mother mentioned about Reverend Beckton coming, and also when he left, of taking members with him.
The struggle that was going on in this church during the Depression to pay for the church, the sacrifices that have made this church what it is, need to be told.
Music has been very important to Tinley Temple because our former pastor, Dr. Charles Albert Tinley, was a composer. And his hymns are in many, many hymn books across the denominations. And so he was famous for his sermons, but also for his hymns.
But I enjoyed it all. I love music, and I love church music. I have learned so much with the hymns that we have sung. Till when I hear other choirs and things on television singing, I can sing right with them. I said, we sang that in our church.
The Tinley Temple has always been the cornerstone, even with our soup kitchen. You know, as long as the doors stay open, somebody can come in, get a nice, hot meal. Somebody can come in to get a prayer. Somebody can come in and really be, ministered to.
At this point, I'd like to introduce you all to our last performer of the evening. He also comes to us from the Porchlight program, this one from the Southeast by Southeast program. And his name is Shui Chi. He is from the Karen community of Burma, and he will be introducing himself in his home language with an interpreter named Nado, who will be translating what he's saying to us in English. Afterwards, Melissa, who you saw earlier, will be reading to us his story in English also. Welcome.
My name is Xue Qi.
Yo le kobe ha.
I live Burma.
Yemi gnyog le.
I'm Korean.
Yo hele. Yo hele mela de ko.
I'm from Mela Camp.
Kai he yi bu ko bu.
I came with my family, 6 members, including my mother-in-law. Right now, I live in South Philadelphia.
Le koplo hotani yata kuda siblibadi duma.
I'm very happy to be here and see many people around here. So, and happy also the other people are going to listen my story also.
Maza ya mitene ka thora wadra awayite ya kwele liwilone.
My story very long, but I write down like a short, so my a teacher is Melissa could read for me.
Oh, you le couple did the couple to Tayar Ganmiwa, Bagno would by Hele Kevni, Argil and the couple Tivero, Tubacovalo.
Tonight only me, I came here. I have many people, the similar story like me in camp and like a Korean people, but today only like one talking about the Korean story. Thank you.
So I want to first thank Shui Chi for giving me the permission to tell his story. He's someone who comes to Southeast by Southeast many times a week. And despite having, a lot of things going on in his life, he's always just so positive and really works so hard and just brings so much to our programs. And I also want to give a special thank you to our volunteers in the audience who've have been coming every Wednesday for almost 5 years, working with Shui Chi and other women in a Friendships Across Cultures program, and the time that they spent helping him write his story. If you guys want to just raise your hands, you're really, they've done some amazing work. So now I want to share Shuichi's story. I was born in Burma in the Karen state. When I was very young, my parents were forced to separate, and I was raised by my mother and my grandmother. My mother was very poor, so she was forced to leave my father's more wealthy and successful family and to take me with her to raise alone. Growing up without a father was very hard and often very sad, but my mother and grandmother worked very hard to support me, and I was able to attend school at a Buddhist temple in my village. We were poor, and life was very hard, but I felt lucky. When I was a young boy in school, the civil war in Burma started and everything changed. My family, my friends, and I were all forced to flee from the Burmese army. We were homeless. We had to run away many times so we could never settle or create a real home. When I was 16 years old, the Burmese army attacked my village directly, and we didn't escape in time. They stole from families, hurt women, destroyed our farms, killed the animals, burned the village, and murdered people. We tried to run away and hide in the middle of the night. The army chased me through the jungle. They were shooting their guns. It was terrifying. Once, I was caught by the army and I had to work as a slave. I would work for days on end with no food and cruel treatment. I had to build streets and bridges and work for the army families. This happened to me and anyone else who was caught from my village. In 1994, I escaped from Burma and I made it to the refugee camp in Thailand. I couldn't have survived much longer with the army. My health was collapsing and I was being starved. So to survive, I went through the jungle again and reached Mae La refugee camp in 1995. I lived in the refugee camp for 18 years until 2013. Life there was safe, but there was no chance for a better life and future for my family. I tried to stay positive. At least we had food and could survive. In 2014, I found out I had a kidney problem. I had many infections in the past, but never knew it was so serious until I arrived in the United States and had good doctors. In America, I'm able to get lots of assistance. I go to the doctors 3 times a week for my kidney dialysis. They provide good care. My kids go to good schools and have the chance to get education. I still feel very disappointed and stressed with life here. When I stay home and I'm sick with my kidney, I get stuck in my sadness. To fight my sadness, I try to learn and stay busy. I take classes and work in a garden. When I go to the garden, I feel much happier and better. My mind is clear and I feel strong and healthier when I'm out working on the farm. When I move, learn, and work, my sadness feels better. America gives us many opportunities, but we still must struggle and work hard. I want to say thank you to the government for all the help they gave me. I'm also very grateful for Mr. Adams' garden where I work. I also want to say thank you to Southeast by Southeast where I come to classes. The American teachers and volunteers help me. They remind me that America can be a home for me.
I wanted to thank all of you for sharing and for all of you for listening. So another round of applause for all of our performers, please. I just wanted to summarize a lot of what I've heard tonight. I think we've all seen not only the history of Philadelphia in these stories, but also the future of Philadelphia. And from what I've heard, there was a lot of migrating, there was crossing boundaries, there was persevering and resilience, and insistence on learning and growing, not just because of the circumstances, but also despite the circumstances. And I encourage you to take all of these stories with you, to continue to share them with those in your lives, to continue to listen to those that you may encounter in your communities, and also share your stories in turn. And at this time, I would like to call up Symbol from the Office of Immigrant Affairs to close us out with a little bit more about Immigrant Heritage Month and all the other events that they have planned for us throughout this month.
Someone move my mic. guys. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight and spending your Tuesday night with us. The last thing I wanted to say about Immigrant Heritage Month was that we are doing an online social media campaign that encourages you to tell your story and to use the hashtag I stand with Philly immigrants. We want you to know, more than just listening to people's story, we want you to participate yourself. And we would hope that some of these stories inspire you to think a little bit deeper about where our experiences might intersect and how we, again, going back to this theme of building community. Communities aren't natural and they're not given to us. We build them and we build these relationships, and you take active steps to help a person out when they feel alienated, or help to, take a stand when people are under attack. So tonight, that's the theme of tonight, and I would hope that this kind of gets your mind going to maybe write a poem or simply just think about why you stand with Philly's immigrants in this time of need. So that is all I have for tonight. We will be around if you have any questions, if you would like to know more about our office or any of our organizations, you have a program. Can I just get one more round of applause for everyone that's out here? So you guys must be starving and I don't want to keep you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you.